Hi, I'm Alison Neilson, and I'm here to share with you an open call seed video for inviting your creative responses or reflections to a climate fiction. This is a continuation of activities and engagements between arts and sciences, well, actually more the integration arts and science related to the ocean. We welcome submissions by individuals, teams, or collaborations, and you don't actually need to be an artist or a scientist. Anyone who is interested may participate. It can be anything as simple as a short poem or a longer written piece, a painting, a dance, a song, any kind of creative expression or reflection that you would like to make in response to the climate fiction we are sharing. The submissions will be curated and shared back to everyone who shares their work. We will have an online meeting to share our works together, and these works will be shared at the upcoming American Geophysical Union's fall meeting this December 2025. In a moment, I will share a video presentation of a reading of the climate fiction. But first, I will tell you a little about it. The story was co-imagined, co-created with the ocean and by Dwight Owens, Sevgi Aka, Jung, Małgorzata Suś, and myself, Alison Neilson. Rather than merely giving you the text to read, we offer an audio recording of us reading the story, but with the full text on screen as well. The story does include mention of fire and fear. So if you've been impacted by a forest fire or otherwise sensitive to the idea of fires, please take care in listening to our story. The story also includes joy and hope. So with that, please listen to our story of Cassandra, and we look forward to receiving your responses.
On this particular morning, when Cassandra awoke, it was so hot. She noticed her hair, which was water, and which was flowing like waves. Her water hair was on fire. It was burning, and that was not very comfortable. She sat up thinking, how can I put out the fire in my hair? I can't use water. When she reached up to pat down the fire on her head, her hands started burning, and she thought, today is a really hot day.
So she kicked the blanket off with her feet. She pushed it because it was so hot, and the blanket fell on the floor. She rolled out of bed, and as she was rolling, the water was also falling. It started to create a waterfall out of the bed. Then she heard the sound of rain outside.
It reminded her of the beginning of the beginnings of the stars, and the stars that fell from the ocean into the sky reminded her of how much she loved to be a star, a wet, wet waterfall star, even though sometimes it was really, really difficult.
It was difficult because she constantly felt she was losing part of herself and having to recreate herself at the same time, knowing that each second she would become a slightly different person. And yet there was something holding it all together, which was only the flow of things flowing through her wet star waterfall body into the ocean that she wanted to merge into. But she also thought that there was something about an entity named Cassandra that felt important to her, something telling her that she should not lose that, and she never did. Years and years turned into millennia. Every little atom that had ever been in her water body had been replaced, but there was something holding it all together, holding her together.
There was the gravitational force that kept her wet star body floating and whirling through the universe. She wondered, if there is so much water inside of me, is there a chance that new life forms could develop within my cells, tissues, and organs, and on the surface of my skin? She began to daydream herself becoming a new earth, a refuge, a safe destiny for all the earthlings needing to migrate from their original home. Then, all of a sudden, she remembered about the burning fire in her hair and got scared. The terrifying thought appeared in her mind. What if all my water would evaporate with that heat?
So she continued flowing along with her blankets, which were getting more and more tangled around her feet. She tumble-flowed down the stairs and outside, where the rain was falling up. The rain fell upward from the ocean into the sky. When it struck the top of the sky, each raindrop was scorched there and started burning. Her eyes were filled with the scorched burning of stars swirling in the sky.
The sky? What was the sky? She thought. Where was it? On my right? On my left? Below my feet?
And all around her feet were wonderful creatures that she loved so. They had wings and beaks and hands and even little mechanical things they had made, and they always made her laugh. She had to be careful not to step on them, but when she looked down, she could dance with them, and it made her smile when she saw how beautiful they were, even when sometimes they seemed to have trouble with one another.
What made them so easy for her to relate to was the way they all contained little pieces of herself. And it was like a little game for her, finding a trace of herself and realizing, wow, that was a part of me, and now I know it's also different. I would never recognize it. Would I not feel this innate sense that it used to belong to me? And seeing those creatures now in this moment made her feel hopeful. She thought maybe it's okay. And she stopped rolling, and her hair had stopped burning. It was just kind of glimmering, some embers glowing, and she thought maybe it's okay. And she shook her head a little, and the embers glimmered stronger. But then she got scared again, looked down at the little creatures and up at the sky and out over the ocean. She hesitated, suddenly overcome by fear.
She noticed that the creatures crowded around her feet were gradually dispersing, moving towards the ocean, seemingly ready to migrate. Cassandra thought, what if I go with them? Would they carry me on their wings? She stepped out of her house, leaving the blankets tangled on the floor, with her hair loose and messy, with silver streaks shining where the embers used to glimmer. She stepped out and ran to the shore, and she ran into the water, and the water took her in embrace.
She felt lost, not knowing where the sky was anymore. As she floated, the creatures were all around. They nibbled on her toes, tickling her, causing her to laugh. In her laughter, and in her fear and disorientation, she began crying. The tears, these burning tears coming out of her eyes, were flowing out in different directions, creating shimmering currents. Her eyes turned red from the salty, burning tears, and she felt she was falling.
There were places on Earth with creatures that were really cold. They needed covers, jackets, caves, or tree roots to warm themselves. and they felt the fires coming out of Cassandra's tears. They warmed themselves thanks to these salty tears. There were other places on the living planet with thirsty plants, and these waters reached them very slowly through air. Actually, it was the plants who called the tears. They invited the tears, drank them, and flourished.
It was such a warm remembering of how the calls that came from the plants and the fish and the dolphins and the people of this part of the ocean and the people of that part of the ocean, how they used to dance and call and feast and celebrate together, how they used to call and make the world happen. And it was such a warm remembering. It was a bit of sadness too, because sometimes some of them had forgotten. But when the warm tears came to them, and when they heard the trees, the plants calling, they started to remember. They remembered these songs that they'd call, the songs that they learned from Cassandra and from the other creatures around.
Cassandra was really grateful for the sadness, for being able to just sit in it. It was quite overwhelming, but it was nice to be able to just feel it all, to know it was okay to be sad in that moment, and that there was a lot of warmth within that sadness too. She wasn't even sure of all the things that she was sad about. So much has changed, and it seemed like she was grieving everything. A lot of little creatures she used to see but could no longer see, a lot of places that had changed in a way that made others move out, in a way that felt constricting, in a way that made her deeply sad. But this, right now, was a different type of sadness she was experiencing. And it felt nice to be able to sit there and cry and know that that's okay and that tears can be nourishing too.
So then, from within her sadness, she noticed the fire in her heart was starting to unfold and open. It was her genuine heart of sadness, which started blossoming like an immense multicolored lotus. The flower opened so wide, the whole universe was invited in. All the plants, all the dolphins, all the creatures nibbling on her toes, even her blankets. Everything found its place inside this immense bloom that finally revealed itself as a giant sun, a burning liquid ocean lotus sun shining.
The liquid lotus sun was filled with hope. It was seeping, oozing out all over, like a sweet nectar. There was water in the sun that's made of fire, and Cassandra felt mind blown with this shift of perspective. Suddenly it was clear to her. If the up and down can shift, if the right can become left, why not the fire could turn into water? She was witnessing the sun transforming into an ocean.
The sun, as we know it, is one sun, but she had sisters. The sisters she never knew existed. The creatures always thought they're standing in one place and facing one direction. They only appear when they call the day, and they disappear when we call the night. But the creatures discovered the sun's sisters, that it was all relative.
And time also flowed in a funny way. This was tough for the little creatures. It was tough for this mouth to speak about time existing and flowing at once and future and past, but it all existed at the same time. Her tears and the creatures dancing and calling happened before. It happened again and stopped happening before and stopped happening again. And this mouth can barely speak these words because time works differently in the mouth that's speaking right now.
And even though maybe the mouth can't speak it in a way that makes it really clear what Cassandra was feeling at that moment, something in the bodies of the little creatures still resonated with it. Maybe their mouths could not speak it, but their bodies could feel it. And they remembered that it had been like that before. The big cycles of air becoming trees, becoming rock, becoming liquid, flowing into other bodies. It's the same way the sadness that they sometimes felt turned into rage, turned into energy, turned into sleep, turned into sweetness, turned into tears again. And Cassandra watched the little creatures having these different moments of realization and forgetting, and then having the same moment again a few days later or a year later. And Cassandra was like, yeah, man, that's silly, but I also know that's just how it goes.